Be still and know that God is here. Be still and know that God is here. Be still and know that God is here. Amen.
Amen.
How do we know that something is good? How do we know when something is bad? I suppose it often depends on what color the lenses are in the glasses we're wearing at the time. A friend of mine talks about looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. I'm not talking about the kind of glasses some of us wear to correct our vision. I'm talking about the judgment glasses that we all wear to help us pass judgment on whether something is good or something is bad. And passing judgment isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's an important part of what humans do. Is that food cool enough to put in my mouth? Is that leftover spaghetti in the refrigerator still safe to eat? Is the traffic clear enough for me to pull out onto the road? Is there enough time for me to push that snooze button one more time? Is the weather warm enough to put the snow shovel away? Our brains pass judgment thousands of times each day, and most of the judgments are so routine or are made so quickly that we aren't even aware that there was a judgment taking place, which can be a really good thing. Take the example of whether or not the food is cool enough to put in your mouth. Think of how long each meal would take if we had to think about the temperature of each and every bite we put in our mouth before we put it in our mouth. We might spend a little more time thinking about those first few bites, but after that, the decision is automatic. Sometimes, however, the situation is not quite as clear or easy and requires us to use more than just our human eyes before a judgment can be made. Our lesson today from 1 Samuel and our gospel lesson from John have examples of this type of situation. In 1 Samuel, God has asked Samuel to go anoint the one who is to succeed Saul as king. As Jesse's sons pass before Samuel, he looks at the outward appearance of each one and he rushes to a judgment. Tall, handsome, strong, this must be the one. And to each of Samuel's judgments, God answers, no, not this one. Jesse and his sons have also been making judgments. The youngest son, David, was judged so young, so small, and so unimportant, they didn't even call him when Samuel said, bring before me your sons. In our gospel lesson, we hear that at the man's birth, his entire community had rushed to a judgment. Whether it was the mother or the father or the man himself, someone had surely sinned. And the disciples agreed. Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Later, the Pharisees find that Jesus has healed this man on the Sabbath, so they immediately conclude that Jesus can't be from God. After all, he violated one of the most important commandments by working on the Sabbath day. The man who has been healed also jumps to a conclusion. There can be only one reason that all these people want to hear the story of his healing over and over again. They must want to be disciples of Jesus too. Definitely the wrong conclusion. It's then, however, that the man who has been healed makes his first filled with the light of Christ judgment. Here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but he does listen to one who worships him and obeys his will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. The man who was healed and Samuel have learned the same thing. The Lord does not see as mortals see. They look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. We, as humans, make judgments based on what we see with our human eyes, what we see on the surface or an outward appearance. It's a safety mechanism that God has built internally for us to keep us safe and keep us from entering into bad situations. And it's usually incredibly helpful. We see that the food is really hot, so we wait until it cools to put it in our mouth. We see that the ice is thin, and so we use good judgment and stay on the shore. But what happens when we use those same human eyes to make judgments about each other? We all do it. There's not one of us that is not making a judgment about our neighbor. We look at the customer in dirty clothes, paying for their groceries with a bridge card, and we judge them. We look at the person wearing designer clothes and driving a BMW, and we judge them. We look at the person covered in tattoos, sporting a purple hairdo, using foul language, and we judge them. We judge them based on their outward appearances with our human eyes and our human biases, and we come to the very human and often completely inaccurate conclusions. When we look at people with our human eyes, all we will ever really see is their outward appearance. The Lord does not see as humans see. They look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. The true beauty of each human being, the light of Christ within them, it lies within. The person with the dirty clothes paying for groceries with the bridge card, they've been looking for work for months. Their clothes are dirty because they spent all day doing yard work for their elderly neighbor. They hate being on assistance, and they pray every night that tomorrow will be the day that they find a job. The person with the designer clothes driving the BMW, they're an attorney who volunteers at multiple charitable organizations, gives generously to their church and the schools, does pro bono work for women attempting to get out of abusive relationships, and shares generously with all that they have. And the person covered in tattoos with the purple hair and the foul language, that's my description of Nadia Bolz-Weber, whom I often quote in my sermons. She overcame drug and alcohol addiction and established the Church for All Saints and Sinners in Denver, Colorado. We can't see any of that at a quick glance with our human eyes. Our human eyes can help us to judge situations, but they aren't as helpful when we use them to judge people. And fortunately, we don't have to. Jesus said, I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and those who do see may become blind. Jesus came into this world for judgment. We, as baptized and adopted children of God, have had our blind eyes opened so that we can seek and serve Christ in all persons, loving our neighbor as ourselves. In order for us to do that, we need to look beyond someone's outward appearance. We need to look at what's in their heart. We need to look not with human eyes, but with the eyes of Jesus. As the letter to the Ephesians says, once you were in darkness, but now in the Lord you are light. Live as children of light. For the fruit of the light is found in all that is good and right and true. We were sealed at our baptisms and marked as Christ's own forever, and the light of Christ is with us wherever we go and whatever we do, not only in the green pastures and beside the still waters, but in the presence of our enemies and in the shadow of death. Jesus guides our paths and gives us the strength we need to carry out whatever ministry God has given us to do. Our human eyes are miraculous gifts from God. They help us to see God's love and beauty in the world around us. They keep us safe by helping us to judge whether or not a situation is dangerous. But we cannot use our eyes for judgment of each other. Like the man born blind, Jesus has sent each of us to bathe in the waters, not in the waters of Siloam, but in the waters of baptism. Through the waters of baptism, our eyes have been opened so that we can see the light. Not the light from the sun in the sky, although we appreciate that this time of year, but the light of Christ, the eternal light of God's Son. Jesus provides the lenses through which we are to look at each other. Lenses focused with love and forgiveness. Lenses that enable us to see beyond the outward appearance to the light that resides within each person's heart. And we're given these lenses not to judge each other, but to love and serve, to understand and to forgive. May we understand the blessing these lenses are, and may we always strive to see each other through Christ-focused glasses. Amen.
Amen.